to our district. Sorry. It's okay. Uploaded to our district website. The definitive documentation and decisions are actually documented in our meeting minutes, not in the electronics recording. Any use of an electronic device, such as a computer or cell phone, by trustees during the meeting is related to the business of the meeting. The core values that guide the work of our school district are respect, compassion, honesty, responsibility, and relationships. We're trying something new today on the QR code. Hi, Michelle. We need to find a spot. Okay. On the QR code, we put a QR code on the public sign-in sheet so that you can access our full agenda package during the meeting. As you can see, it's quite lengthy, and so printing multiple hard copies is not always what we choose to do. There's times that we did print up to 15 copies and we ended up shredding them all. So we wanted access to information for people, but also to be responsible climate-wise, I guess. So we will call our meeting to order, which we've done at 5:31. We'd like to acknowledge that today's board meeting is being held within the traditional territory of the Denizah and Treaty 8. Are there any additions to the agenda? Could I please have a mover to adopt the agenda as presented? Moved by David. Seconded, please. Seconded by Bill. There's no additions. All in favor? Carried. We do not have any presentations and delegations this evening. As you know, Trustee Campbell sends her regrets tonight. So we're moving on to trustees' input and celebrations, and we'll start with Trustee Gillis, please.
I attended the BCSDA voter thing to prepare us for the AGM this week. And last week I was at the Regional Science Fair with she handing out on behalf of the board, making a small speech and handing out awards for.
Thank you for doing that.
And I had never been to a regional competition before, but Helen was there and she said it's way less than it used to be, but everybody was saying the same thing, that it was so good to see it back in person. And kind of sad to see us lose that, and I hope we get all of that. But yeah, it was great.
Thank you. Vice Chair Lehman.
I think since last time it's been a bit, hey?
Yeah. Well, spring break was in there.
Yeah. Attended a labor management meeting, to the Blueberry First Nation dinner. Attended a BCFD webinar. They do have different sessions on this one in April, and the one in March. I went to Clearview Pack, did a board chair call surrounding public board meeting. There were lots of good information. And I attended the BCPC regional meeting in Prince George.
Trustee Scott Moncrief.
I also went to the Blueberry dinner. That was fantastic. Really enjoyed that. In contact with some of my schools. Presbyterian is having a wheelchair basketball for all next week. Excited about that. We've got a carnival coming up to raise money for a new $150,000 playground. So looking at grants and see what they can do there. And over at Buick, they had bingo night and raised $1,000 towards a CCAP.
Trustee Snow.
I've been to the high school a few times to visit, talk with them there. Make it over with Kearney usually every week. Just have a little chat. And same as Ambrose, pretty long weekly basis right now. Checking in, making sure everything's going good, and keep busy.
Trustee Whitten.
So my last month has been pretty busy with other stuff, unfortunately, so I haven't had chances to get out to the schools and all that kind of stuff. But it seems like this coming up month is jam-packed with lots and lots of exciting things for us to do. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. So for myself, I went to Upper Pine and attended an equity scan meeting there where invites had been sent out to Doig River, Blueberry, and Halfway River First Nations for parents to come out and fill in a survey. I attended the district supper at the Blueberry, and over spring break, I represented the board at a 50-30 challenge meeting in the Northeast Roundtable, and reports on those events are part of your agenda package. I got to help tie skates up at the Beldonald Skate Day, board chair call like Madeline. I did pop into the science fair. I also participated as a representative for the BC School Trustees Association on the framework for enhancing student learning peer review for Maple Ridge. And I will bring a report back to our committee of the whole meeting just to go over that process and what I learned there. I attended the regional BCPC meeting with Madeline, Montgomery PAC meeting, District Health and Safety Committee meeting, and most exciting of all, did a preschool session at Finch, and I have one Wednesday morning, so that's what sustains me. Moving on to agenda item number 5, minutes of the regular board meeting of March 13th, which is pages 6 to 16 in your agenda package. Give you a chance to look at those. Please get a mover and a seconder for those minutes. Ken?
Okay.
No, because you weren't there. Moved by David, seconded by Thomas. Any errors or omissions noted? All in favor then? Business arising from the minutes. We'll start with the Standing Finance Committee presentation. And on behalf of the board, we said that we would be speaking to K-12 education and northern factors. So seeking input for what points you feel should go into that Standing Finance Committee presentation. Last year, we spoke to inflationary costs, we spoke to transportation, we've spoken to transportation for the past 3 years, a number of different issues, but what would you like to see in this year's presentation? Thomas?
Love to hear a portion on connectivity.
Activity? Okay. Tell me a bit more.
Just the ability for the rural children to get access to doing their homework. How can we better empower them to be able to be connected?
On the right path.
Transportation is still issues.
Inflation and transportation are still there.
Even worse.
Angela's got it under control.
Any other queries? Bill? We certainly are going to want to see follow-up on what we're doing out of this pilot project that Stephen is working on. There was a bit of a mention of a couple of things at BCPC, and I have a bit better understanding of the process.
Is that referring to the pre-K program or is that referring to the online one?
No, it was referring to the pilot project that Stephen has brought forward to at the meetings. They went over it again and are getting to the stage where they are looking at some incentives, and we'll start to look at a letter of understanding with the BCTF in regards to 2 locations. But they're hoping that as they trial this incentive process and things like that, it could lead to more. And that was what I understood from Warren.
Yeah,
I
that's
got it
exactly
right.
what it is, but with the hope that there might be some more broader support.
Yeah.
Or just beyond those pilot districts and areas for the next several years.
What we're hoping. Any other things? We have asked to present in Dawson Creek. Last year, they didn't end up coming to Dawson Creek, and it was done by Zoom. We will send a written presentation in advance and then do the oral presentation. So Angela and I have not got together to work on that yet. So if you have any further things that you would like to see go into that, please let us know. Angela, did you have anything you wanted to add? Okay. And I forgot to let you know, Angela Telford, our Secretary Treasurer, is joining us via Zoom tonight.
The only other thing that I can think of is programs like Project Heavy Duty and getting kids out of the classroom where would this be a proper place to try to get more funding for those types of programs?
You can certainly celebrate what we have going on within the district and ask for continued funding to support and expand. We usually try and thank them for some things. So the dual credit program for early childhood education with our expanded role in childcare is a good thank you. Right. The next item under is business arising is SD60 overdose response awareness, and included as attachments in your agenda package are documents and things that I've pulled together to work on our draft of a letter to Northern Health seeking better communication. I attached them for your information so that you could see the background to the overdose site or safe consumption site that is there. And Stephen, was your attachment here? Do you want to speak to it at all?
It's really there for information in case there are questions. Yes,
Okay.
as a response to the initial questions that came up.
Okay. So included as well in the agenda package is something that Stephen put together to show overall within the district what was going on with drug awareness, and he followed up with a number of the schools. Any other questions related to that? Moving on to item number 6 then, which is an approval of the excerpts of the regular board meeting on February 21st, which is page 17 in your agenda package. Quick second glance at it because it's short and sweet. Okay, you were
Oh, that's right, okay.
moved by Thomas, seconded by, we'll pick somebody quick. Seconded by David. Thank you. All in favor? When you take a look at the announcements and reminders, you can see how busy May and June are getting to be. Are there any other things that we need to add to that very busy calendar? Yep.
The recognition dinner, is that on?
The what?
Retirement dinner.
Good question.
The retirement dinner, it should be on here. I have the date, but I thought it was, but I can't see it. It's June,
That's why.
yeah, no. We asked for it to be put on here early, so I'm not seeing it. District Long Service and Retirement Dinner is June the 7th, so we should make sure that that goes on there. Thank you for catching that, Madeline. Anything else?
And there should be an invite to those who are on your calendar.
Yeah, I think there already is an invite in the calendar to that. If not, there will be. Moving on to item number 8, senior staff reports, and Stephen will give his report in its entirety, and then we have some items to pull out for motions.
Yeah, thank you, Helen. There are 2 items to pull out for motions, but my first part, as usual, is the Human Resources Summary Report for Teachers is there. It's an activity report. And then under Education is my report in relation to our framework. And the first area I want to review is just to let trustees and public know, we've been going through a process of sharing the data of our most recent results from the previous year in terms of district results, classroom results, and provincial results. And you'll recall that we did that activity here as well with trustees in terms of reviewing that data. We've done the same thing with the administrators and our learning services department and our team here. And while we have made some progress in our overall grad rate, it's as high as it's ever been, we did see a dip this year in the graduation success of our Indigenous students. And generally speaking, across our system, especially in the intermediate middle school area, we're seeing challenges around success in numeracy. It's not uncommon, it's not unique to us. However, it's certainly emerged that we need to specifically identify this as a goal, its own goal in our framework in terms of the education plan, and make sure we're resourcing it properly. Part of the issue is that we've been in flux between a recommended district resource for the main numeracy program. And so a number of our schools right now have been piloting for the last couple of years a program called Mathology out of Pearson, and it's going quite well. And so we're going to be expanding that in this coming year and working with people to move that across the district to try and address some of those challenges around numeracy. As previously mentioned, there was a regional science fair, which for many of our students is a significant intellectual challenge and achievement at the same time. And so it was, again, good to see some of that come back. And four students from ST60 have moved on to the nationals. So they'll be going to that shortly. And as for that information, Kevin Frankham, Vice President for Northern BC Regional Science Fair, has supplied the list of the winners from that event. Under Human and Social Development, we're really quite proud of this unique program involving some of our special needs students in an aquatic therapy and aquatics program. And they were able to attend this over a couple of days in participation with their families, but it was organized with our partners from the Sunny Hill Health Center, working along with our physiotherapists and our occupational therapists. And so the pool and the city was actually quite interested in maybe some ongoing training that could further facilitate these kinds of workshops in the future. So there's just a report there around what the goal of those activities were and what that looked like as they were in the pool. Also under human and social development, really grateful for, the affordability fund from the ministry. We partnered with the Whiskey Jack Cross Country Ski Club. So we supported schools that wanted to bring students out there in terms of the cost of the bus as well as the rental of the ski equipment. And several classes took this up. And so we had a number of them go out there. Many of them learned how to cross country ski for the first time, and lots of volunteer help from the Whiskey Jack Club. This is just a picture from one of those classes from Maury who attended. We're hoping with some of the carryover from the Affordability Fund to be able to continue to support this and just build up some interest around this important physical literacy. For our skills and development, career skill development, I believe I had mentioned the fact that there were some local competitions around the skills competition. Well, also now we have the results from the Skills Canada regional competition. So you can see there a number of our students from around the region, but especially, of course, from our schools NPSS around some of the specific things that they won in their categories. So we're well represented, either between our own schools or from the college in terms of their participation and their success in this regional and national competition. So pictures there to celebrate. Further, with some ADST projects, Brian Campbell, the principal of Careers and International, is working with specifically grade 5 teachers across the district with a project to encourage them around this cranky contraptions theme. So several grade 5 teachers have signed up for this and are getting some support and are participating in this competition by having their groups of kids carried out. And there's more information. And by the way, if I recall also with your question there, Trustee Whitten, that I included here a link to the specific curriculum around ADST. And so it actually shows you kind of grade level by grade level what the various learning outcomes are for applied design, skills, and technology. Under operations, just a reminder to all of us that we have several postings out there. We have hired up to this point here, I believe 7 from out of district, which is good, but we need more. And so, just putting a call out to use all of your own personal and professional networks to drive any traffic that you can to this link. We have openings for teaching staff, support staff, all kinds of opportunities. So we're hiring. And it was also mentioned this evening around our visit to the Blueberry, and if anything, it was a fantastic dinner with all of our senior staff and trustees and some of the families there too. So it was nice to get out there and have our presence there out at the Blueberry First Nations. Second item under Truth and Reconciliation is this is a massive undertaking. It's all staff are invited to this and trustees too. It's May 5th. At the NPSS campus, and our entire population of staff is invited there. And so they have a guest speaker, Tristan Durocher, and then workshops throughout the day in different parts of the school at NPSS. So the Indigenous Education Department is working with our local unions, with district teachers. Everyone's working together to put this day forward. Finally, as always, just some celebrations around the district. With Bert Ambrose, it's their annual student conference was held on March 17th. So you can read about that and some of the pictures there that they do, activities they do each year. CM Finch had a dance residency with Mrs. Pomeroy. She's actually worked in a number of our schools. And the theme is kind of like square dancing as well as some circle dancing, and she works with them throughout the week, and then has like a community dance at the end of the week. And so they had a great week there. And finally, just some pictures and examples of activities from our Buick Creek school that's being supported by the Key Learning Center, with their teachers going out there as well as some parents and support staff on site, and some activities and art projects that they'll be doing there. That is my online report. Item number 2 is, as you mentioned, Helen, I've included information from our middle and secondary schools as far as how the counselors, the schools, and the curriculum support themes around substance abuse prevention and education. Item number 3 is our out-of-district field trips, and item number 4 is community coaches. Thank you.
Can I please have a mover and a seconder for Stephen's report? Moved by Bill, seconded by Thomas. Now we'll go through the report item by item for discussion, and then we'll look at bringing forward the motions. So the first item was the HR summary report for teachers. So in that report, Stephen, we're starting to see hiring for September.
Yes, those 7 new from out of district are all for September, and most of the postings you'll see now are for the fall.
I see a couple of retirees.
Just,
And we are, Thomas?
how much did that come from all of your guys' activities in Ontario, Calgary, all the recruitment that we've been doing?
Great question. We'll actually be able to provide a report. I think we've done that in the past as far as they are tracking which universities they come from. So once the dust is settled here, likely in the fall, we'll be able to break that down for trustees. And because that then helps us determine where to and where not to go to the next time.
Okay, moving on to the electronic report.
Sorry, Al.
That's okay. Framework review, focus on numeracy. And when we went with mathology, how long was it piloted for? I'm just wondering. And obviously, if we'd chosen to go with it, the response to it was that it didn't meet the needs.
Yeah, good question. So rather than sort of just saying that there was one program for everyone at the same time, we asked for volunteer schools. And so we had places like Central School and Duncan Cran specifically last year. So this would be our second year of piloting in a couple of locations. And it's working with those teachers and those administrators to ensure that it is something that they find useful and they've been able to kind of learn together. And Pearson, the publisher, has come up along with facilitators to help establish some of that professional development. Because the key here is as we roll this out more broadly, if that's the accepted resource, you can't just roll it out and say we're done. There needs to be some professional development that goes along with it. So that's also we're mindful of the time that it takes to roll something like this out.
David, did you have a question? Regional Science Fair, reiterating it was great to see it back. Audits Outreach Program, I'm quite excited to see this back, and the fact that we have the pool interested in knowing and having families there while programs are being set up and established. It becomes something that families can carry over outside of school time. Because swimming is one of those things that we know is really good for our kids. And if you have limited muscle tone, water is very supportive to try new things.
Question to the country scheme, just from our own understanding. So the affordability fund.
Yeah.
I mean, that was this year.
Yeah.
Hopefully, again, coming next year. Was that school-based or also district-wide based?
Great, thanks for the question. The vast majority of the funds that we initially received, were that 600,000 approximately, was allocated proportionally to the schools, as well as some equity allocations to some schools who needed more. In addition to that, we did keep a smaller pot here at the district level as part of our consultation with our Indigenous partners as well, in terms of any needs that would emerge there, and for some of the projects like this.
Okay.
And so there was an initial division where the vast majority got rolled up to the schools, and then there's a portion here as well for this kind of thing. And I think I can confirm that the ministry has said, this fund that we received in this current school year, we can carry that over. But to be clear, there is no further affordability funds. We have other things like the food security fund that you'll hear about, but no more affordability fund.
So is that the end of this program then?
Well, as always, we kind of seed things the best that we can at the time with the money that we have. And part of this was to drive some interest and maybe have more people go out there with their families as well too. but also schools often have the means and the resources and hopefully now the interest to start planning some of their own field trips as well with their classes. And in fact, a few of our schools have their own equipment. So it's kind of reviving that interest. If we could continue to do it, we'll certainly look at that. It's not a huge cost. It's it's maybe about $100 for the bus and then a couple $100 for the rental equipment and the use of the shuttle. So it's $300 touch.
I didn't get a chance to get out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of our schools that also have snowshoes.
Right.
Would they be able to snowshoe there?
They will, and they did.
Okay.
So the best scenario in going out there with a group of students, like 30 odd students, is that some of them do cross country, some of them do snowshoeing, and some of them maybe do an activity inside the chalet. It's a beautiful classroom space with big tables and things like that. So actually, the more activities, the better planned it is, to be honest.
It was a whole lot of fun.
Yeah,
Anybody who's
I was there, and he and I floundered around with a group of kids there. And as I say, many of them were learning for the first time. So people like Eliza Stanford and the other volunteers from Whiskey Jack, they put in a lot of energy to help those kids.
So the Whiskey Jack Club, that's just a volunteer nonprofit?
Correct. They built this chalet and they run and maintain the cross-country ski trails at Beacon.
Okay. Because I'm just thinking this must have been so much easier for the local kids to get to rather than the Cameron Lake site, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have students from here that are going on to provincials.
I think I've got to confirm with Mr. Campbell, but I'll get back to you on that. We normally do, especially on robotics,
Yeah.
both actually provincially and nationally.
Okay.
And so I'll confirm what the ones that move forward are. I know we did compete nationally for robotics last year.
Yeah. I have a former that's name is up there in first place, and I was
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah.
Questions related to other items there?
Sorry if I'm going too
Scrolling
fast.
through
Yeah,
quickly.
just stop me. Thank you.
I'm going to call the question, all in favor of accepting that report as presented? And now the two items that we have to pull out for separate motions. One relates to out-of-district field trips, which is an attachment in your agenda package. And I'm looking for a mover to the recommendation that the Board of Education adopt the out-of-district field trips as presented. Moved by Bill, seconded by Madeline. Any questions related to this before? Okay, calling the question then, all in favor?
Thank you.
Community coaches attachment. Again, I'm looking for a mover and seconder for the motion that the Board of Education adopt the community coaches as presented. By David, seconded by Bill. Discussion or questions? Excited to see that one of our former students is going to be playing for UVic. So, calling the question, all in favor?
Thank you.
We'll switch locations and we'll move on to the Secretary Treasurer's report. Here's to you, Angela.
Sorry, everybody. It's all of a sudden seems extremely loud here where I am, but thank you. I pull up my report here real quick. Or not. Sorry, 2 seconds. I had it and now okay. So my report contains the financial update to March 31st, 2023. food security grant that we have starting next school year. Now, Helen, did you want me to go provide any information on that attachment right now, or do you want me to wait for questions at the end?
I think we'll go through your report, then we'll ask questions of each item, please, and thank you.
Okay, yep. And then just the board office closure, just a standard letter that we give out every year, letting the public know that we'll be closed for 5 weeks, I believe, during the summer. And then there is the HR support staff summary showing any changes in personnel we've had over the period March 10th to April 20th. And that is my report.
All right, can I please get a mover and seconder in relationship to that report? Moved by Madeline, seconded by Thomas. All right, starting with the financial update. Questions for Angela, please, and thank you.
Um,
Madeline?
So Angela, just for my sake, because
yes.
sometimes you have to tell me 3 times. The LEA revenue,
Yes.
is that billed, invoiced once a year, twice a year, quarterly?
Yeah. It's so it's billed in December based on the number of students that were on the September 1701. So and through the LEAs, we bill out either 50% or 75% at that time, just depending on how the LEA for each First Nation was drawn up. And then we invoice the rest in March 15th. So what you're seeing there is not the full amount. That is the amount for just for the period September to the end of March. So for 7 months.
Okay. So then we'll see the rest.
Yeah, every month we'll add the remaining amount on. Yes.
So Angela, a lot of other districts are really commenting on post-COVID TOC costs and EA casual costs being quite high.
Yeah.
We're saying higher based on previous years. Is it a little bit higher or quite a lot higher?
Well, when we did the amended budget, we were seeing that we were pretty much on track as to what we, you could see we're even coming in a bit under at 68.5%. So we had, when we budgeted for the amended budget, we budgeted not super conservatively. We were expecting to see the costs remain high. So we're landing where we think we'll land. Now, that being said, if we could find casuals in all areas, we might be coming in a bit higher than what we're seeing here. So.
Well, I was asking the question a little bit to clarify whether in our financial standing committee presentation, I know some districts are asking for a recognition in the money coming to the district that some of the post-COVID or some of the costs that went up during COVID are remaining, and so they're asking for a recognition of that. And I was just wondering how true that is for us.
We can definitely, I can get a deeper dive into that and get back to you on that.
We want to have a look at in terms of that presentation.
Yeah, good idea. Mm-hmm.
Other questions of Angela on the financial report? Right, moving on to then the food security grant.
Yeah, so earlier Stephen was discussing the affordability fund, and that came out this year, and it had some rather strict parameters around it. Sorry, I'm shushing my son. He's next to me talking very loud all of a sudden. And so the affordability fund, it was just a one year, but the ministry has released information around a food security fund called the Feeding Futures School Food Program. And it allows a bit more flexibility than the affordability fund had. So we can use the money this year to hire 1.0 FTE, could be a food coordinator. We haven't quite determined what that position will be. The money will be used to ensure that students come to school and are fed with stigma-free access to food. And as for right now, we know that it's there for 3 years, but they've given us hope and that it will be there long term, because I'm not sure the problem with food security is just a short term problem. So the ministry is recognizing that. This year, we will also be able to upgrade some of the equipment we currently have in schools. No infrastructure changes, but a fridge that needs to be replaced or a stove, equipment like that. We can use this fund for. And then we can also pivot a bit with any operational funding we currently are using from the district or special purpose funds, and put it all through this fund. So it's actually quite a good news story. And our district is going to be getting $806,483.
My question related to this, Angela, is there seems to me to be an overlap in what we've been doing with Community Links funding and the hiring of a coordinator to deal with food and menus and things like that for the schools that have been operating through Community Links. Can we do some of what we've been doing through Community Links with this fund, and then leave Community Links funds to do some of the other things that Community Links funds were intended for?
Yeah, first of all, I will ask the question if one Carleen Andrews has been asking you to advocate for that, but that actually is.
I came up with that completely on my own, thank you.
Very, very well done. That is the plan, is to move any meal support that has currently been out of operating or special purpose funds like Community Links into this Feeding Future School Fund. So then that money will move towards, I'm sure Carleen has plans for it, so.
Stephen?
Yeah, I haven't been involved in Community Links for a number of years. The parameters or the definition of the students that we're able to support in Community Links is quite narrow in terms of certain schools or certain vulnerable populations. The Food Security Fund is, as you know, the need in that was across the district.
Yep.
And so this is to sort of systematize access to food and programming in a broader way. And then Community Links will have better capacity to focus on the criteria that it had in the first place.
Madeline?
Angela, so it is a bit more than I think what we saw from the affordability fund.
Yeah.
Dollar-wise. And is the plan, again, to keep a portion for the district and then allocate schools, or is it all coming kind of out of one?
If I'm being honest, I'm not sure what our format moving forward will be. We haven't sat down as a leadership team to come up with the plan, but we will be doing that, I believe, in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll definitely get back to you as to what our plan will be moving forward.
So one of the things that worries me a little bit here, when I look on page 2, when I think of the volume of work that has to be done in board office between now and the end of the June, is the concept that you have to come up with a spending plan by July 2023, and there's going to be a template coming your way. Do you have that template yet?
We don't have it yet, no.
Well, I look at all the things that they want information that they want under that, and that's an awful lot of work. And even to meet the July timeline, the concept of going out to community to look at third-party food service providers is quite tight.
Yeah, I do agree that it is a bit, but I usually like it does say draft. So I think we just provide them with our initial plan, align it with their the criteria they have, and then I'm sure we'll have the opportunity to pivot as we get more information and get more comfortable. As like I said, it is 3 years, so we'll see what this year brings, and then see what opportunities present themselves over the year. At the forefront, we'll just make sure that we are providing food to students through the program, and then everything else, hopefully, we'll learn as we go, like we seem to with some of the other funds that get brought forward and are actually really important to students. Just students' education, being able to come to school and be fed and get through the day and be comfortable. So hopefully
it's a good fun. I'm not suggesting, but I just went, wow.
Yeah, it is a bit, but we seem to be getting pretty good at filling these out and getting an initial plan, and then adapting as we learn more and talk to other districts and see what they're doing. And we're trying not to reinvent the wheel. We'll just start with what we learned from the Affordability Fund and then move forward from there.
Is that 800 over 3 years or 800 per year? 3 years.
That's this year. That's the 23-24 school year. 806,000.
Thank you.
All right, any questions related to board office closure? Obviously, even though board office is closed most of July, somebody will be working on the food security.
Don't worry, Helen, I'll be here.
Okay. Any questions of Angela related to her HR report?
Higher.
Higher, yeah.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
The 6 resignations, and this probably just going back to me being a new trustee, do we do an offboarding process when they leave to kind of find out where, if there's any potential of what we can do better in the future?
Sometimes.
Yeah, that's a great answer, Helen. Sometimes we do an offboarding, and unfortunately, I don't have the reasoning behind these resignations. What we're seeing largely is people moving out of district, just different. It is good that you brought it up. We are trying to get to this place where we can get like an exit interview, see what why they specifically were leaving the district. Right now, it's usually along the lines of just movements away or wanting to stay home. That's what we're seeing, or obviously getting a different job. So, but we'll get there, Thomas. I believe we will. So.
Sorry, Angela, just to add, I know at least a couple of those cases for sure are around. There are a lot of opportunities in our community right now, and so we've seen both people coming on and leaving other positions, as well as our own people leaving and going to other positions too. So I know at least in a couple of those cases, it's higher pay in different occupations here in the region.
Okay. Calling the question then, all in favor of accepting Angela's report as presented? Moving on to agenda item number 9, reports of the regular committee of the whole meeting, April 22nd, 2023. Approval of the minutes, which are pages 20 and 21 in your agenda package. mover and seconder for those, please? Moved by Thomas, seconded by Bill. Any errors or omissions? Okay. Calling the question then, all in favor? I don't believe there's any business arising from those minutes. And we did have a policy committee meeting. And normally would have brought policies forward at this time, but the policies that we looked at, we still needed some work to do. So the next meeting for the policy committee will be Monday, June the 5th at 11 o'clock. So we'll be looking to do policy committee a little bit earlier than our committee of the whole agenda, because I believe on our committee of whole we'll be into budget and things like that. So we just need to note an earlier start time on June the 5th to look at and do some more work on those policies. I told you I saw the date somewhere, Bill. All right, other reports, BCSDA, Trustee Gillis.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Trustee Lehman, BCPC.
So I'm just going to do a quick report. There's an attachment in your agenda package with the slides that were presented at that regional meeting. A few things that maybe are not quite in there. They said they had an 80 to 85% staff turnover in the last couple of years. So they have included a chart as to who's who. I do have that. I did not see that in the slides. They did introduce a new strategic plan for the years 2023 to 25. They talked about the bargaining status and just trends that they've seen over the last year. A big part was Make a Future, the recruitment, the Northern Pilot Project. And I have to say, I think, because Stephen is involved in that, he always gives us reports. I think he was quite ahead of what we've been told for us was not new, but I think for a lot of the people in the room it was new. And what's not on the slides is there were a lot of table discussions as well during the meeting. So under the recruitment, other than, for example, exit interviews, the question was, are we doing stay interviews? So while they're in a position, do we see where they're at?
What can we do to encourage you to stay? And a stay interview isn't something I've come across before.
Yeah, so there were different discussions that, because just recognizing it's a tight labor market. There was a talk about the exempt staff compensation. I guess the policy there, they're working on an update because the old one is in 2015. They're doing a review, and one of the big things maybe for you guys to note, there is an 8th meeting that we were not aware of, and that will be soon because there's 7 regions. They have 7 regional meetings. Ours was in Prince George, but they are now actually going to offer an 8th meeting in May that will be in Zoom that you guys can participate in. So once we have the date, they didn't give the date or time, but once I have that, I'll pass it.
I don't think it was only the northern region that said we're traveling this far. And what was it? They expected 30 people and there was only 15 in attendance. So that tells you something.
So there is an opportunity in May.
Board Pro-D. One of the things that we will have to discuss shortly under Pro-D is on the events calendar. You'll see that the CSBA conference is coming up in July, and we will have to talk about whether we want representation there or not and things like that. Other than that, Board Pro-D will at this time be AGM. And those of you that are attending, I know will be bringing lots of information back. It looks like a fairly full program. The program was available it is available on the hub, and there's a lot about focus, I think, if you look through the presentations on student voice and student voice. student voice to the board table, so. Moving on, in your package, we attached a letter from Margaret Little regarding kindergarten vision screening, and I was not aware that they were no longer doing it. And I think, Stephen, you said you did a little bit of research into that, if you could.
Yeah, I got a little bit of a sense, but what I can also do following this correspondence is to see what else I can find out. However, just letting you know that those types of screening are not overseen by the school district.
No.
So it isn't something that I have any control over. My information tells me that up until 2018, there were some screening clinics going on, including in schools. That ended, and then the pandemic happened, and we've not seen any pickup since then. But what I will do is reach out to some of my health colleagues just to find out about whether there's any plans, and if so, what that's going to look like. Because in the past, it's not necessarily being sort of taking place in every kindergarten classroom. It's sometimes being at what they call the health roundup at the mall.
Kindergarten roundup,
right? Kindergarten roundup in a specific location. So many people have been asking this question around the community, and we'll see what else I can find out for the May board meeting.
And I did forward another email to you from Margaret today that is linked to this particular
Yeah.
request.
So more information to come.
I think I included you in that, Stephen.
Oh, yeah, no, you did, yeah.
Okay. Indigenous Education Carry Forward Ministry Letter. That was correspondence that came to me as chair, and it's included in your package for information. Under unfinished business, I provided you with a report related to the Northeast Roundtable. I have been going to those meetings to stay in touch with what's been going on with TLE, because our Cameron Lake site, as we know, is designated to be part of the treaty land entitlement for Moberly Lake. And I think it's a wait and see, although I'm understanding that they've announced that the BC government, the federal government, and our local First Nations have signed off on those treaty land entitlements. Certainly from being at the Northeast Roundtable, there are people that weren't necessarily seeing those things as done deals. The implementation phase could take a considerable amount of time, and different parcels are at different stages of the implementation phase. And for us, it's partly a wait and see to see where Cameron Lake comes up, and when somebody, I'm assuming from MER, gets back to us around it. I will continue to monitor the Northeast Roundtable meetings, but spending a full day on a Zoom call for the teeny tiny update that we got last time that was pertinent to the reason I'm there, I'm not sure about. I know a lot more about caribou now than I ever knew, but it is a matter of monitoring, and I will continue to monitor. And if there's any questions related to what I included on the Northeast Roundtable, I'll attempt to answer them.
When was your last roundtable, sorry?
Spring break.
Because, yeah, it's my understanding those TLEs are our done deal.
Yeah, but it wasn't when I had that meeting in March, because
Like, I know the district of Hudson's Hope is having their ceremonial, so we would have an answer by now. If they wanted it, I think they got it.
if they want it, they got it. But for us, it's all that transition. And we know from our earlier discussion with Moberly Lake, they want it as an added to reserve parcel. They still have to do some work with the federal government and us, because we made it very clear that we don't really care who our landlord is, but we want the same terms and conditions as we had with our landlord that was the Crown. And when they talked about implementation, there was, okay, there's an agreement on the parcel, and then there's all these steps in the implementation process. And that's what I'm meaning. I don't know where we're at in the steps. I think our Cameron Lake site is definitely it's part of the TLE settlement.
Yeah, okay.
Thomas.
Yes, these processes take a very, very long time. I can appreciate that. The one thing I will say, if you do need somebody to sit in for you, on one of these.
Yeah,
I'd probably take a lot of information from a lot of it, so I'd be happy to take that
Okay.
on.
Yeah.
For only one or two meetings.
Well, there's one coming up in June. I'll send you the agenda's not out yet. When the agenda comes out, I'll let you know. What was interesting at this is when it came to the part about the treaty land entitlement, got up and said, all our energy has been going into the report that I gave you that showed some of the agreement that's come out of the Blueberry decision. And it was nothing much has been going on with TLE, but there might be something coming up in the future. And I did not get that that was the foreshadowing of the fact that the deal was signed. When I saw that, I went, holy crow. And then I went back and I looked specifically at the minutes because I thought, was I asleep for what he said? But I wasn't. It wasn't.
I will say that I'm happy for them, because you remember him sitting here saying 20 years ago, he thought he was going to see the end of this in 5 years, 10 years. So the fact that they all have some conclusion, I think I'm happy for them.
Some conclusion, but it's still a work in progress. And there's still lots to be done.
There's a lot of site remediation that needs to go on and all this kind of stuff before stuff starts changing hands, is kind of what I've been hearing.
New business, again during spring break, and I got to go to a meeting called the 50-30 Challenge, and as I suggested in my report, Northern Lights College is one of 4 groups that have got a federal grant to work on this initiative. And basically what it's looking at is kind of hiring and getting more representation at board tables. And it was kind of interesting in this pilot meeting, we thought about Fort St. John, and we thought about, the fact that it has had a female mayor. There's actually some of the goals of this particular program, if you looked at the profile of people that were invited to this initial pilot meeting, we were doing quite well at. As I explained, I was not signing the board up. That's not my role. It would be a corporate thing, and it would be something that we would need direction from district staff on as to whether this is something that we want. But what I included was the demographic information that is in that report, was really showing the change in our community in terms of the number of immigrants and our percentages and things like that, which becomes very helpful when we start to look at our own district data and our strategic engagement plan. Somebody else has done the work already in some of those slides to pull some information together for us. Yes.
We had something similar come up like this at we were in Vancouver a year or 2 ago. And what it was is they were trying to, with the boards, get representation designated kind of thing.
Kind of First Nations.
Yeah. Right. And so, I mean, it didn't go over well there, kind of thing.
I don't know if, and I have to admit that I haven't really delved deeply into some of the stuff from this because I had other things I was delving deeply into. But what they're looking to do is to just bring awareness to boards about some of those kinds of things to think about in terms of drawing people in at election time. And we had some of those conversations at our table about how do you get more people to run, how do you increase the awareness.
It's the same as I said before, you encourage everybody to.
Yeah. Yeah. But as I say, I could see us looking at the statistics, quite interestingly enough, because 12.9% of our population is Indigenous, only 5.9% in the province. So that becomes a lens that we need to start to take a look at. The increase in visible minorities was, I know it, but to see it statistically presented, I went, okay, not crazy. Well, right? Any further questions, district staff has that information, and I'm sure that they'll do a deep dive into it. And if there's anything that they would, response related to it that they would like from us as a board, I'm sure that they'll get back to us on it. Oh, long time no see, my friend Michelle. It's wonderful to have you back. I bet you have a PRNT update for us.
I do. Thank you. I had been really sick, and so lots of other things have been going on. So nice to be back. Nice to see everybody. I just want to springboard from Stephen's presentation, and I want to personally invite you to the May 5th Indigenous Education Day. And in Stephen's presentation, there's a QR code. And so you need to register using the QR code because lunch is provided. There's 4 different kinds of soup, and we'll have bannock, and there'll be coffee and goodies. And looks like it will be a really great day. I do want to thank Pat Jensen for her work on this and her team that she has at the Indigenous Center. As well as Carlene Andrews and Charmaine Christian, who have put a lot of time into this, as well as our Pro-D executive. So it's kind of been a team effort. I know that we've been planning since, I think, January was our first meeting. So these things just don't happen overnight. But please, if you can, even come for the keynote. I know Stephen's going to be addressing all personnel. All staff. So yeah, thanks. And that is, Margaret contacted me about the vision screening as well. So I appreciate you looking into it, Stephen, and I'll hear what you have to say in May, but I didn't know that it wasn't happening either. And I think it's really important that the district is involved with, at least to ask Northern Health to continue this with, I don't know, the health unit or something. I think it's really valuable.
Well, it seems like there's some things that aren't necessarily being done, and there doesn't seem to be an understanding of why, or perhaps they've moved the funding that was associated with that elsewhere. But that does mean that we have a group that will be coming in underserved.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you, and it's nice to be here.
We don't have anybody here from DPAC. And QP's not here. So, much to our excitement, we do have public here. And when public asks any questions, we are going to ask that you give us your name so that if we want, sometimes we can't answer your questions in meeting, that will allow us to follow up with you more effectively. And just a reminder that any of our conversations and questions must be consistent with the core values of the district. And yeah, and in reference to a specific agenda item. So if there's any questions, we're happy to field them at this time. Hello, sir.
Hi, Wayne Bell's my name. Just wondering where we are with that safe injection site, whether it's been moved or not. I heard it might be moved.
We don't have any feedback on that. The material that you saw in the package tonight is part of our due diligence in understanding things around that. And we are continuing to gather some information to write our letter asking for better communication. So that question would be one that perhaps public health could answer for you, but we don't have the information to answer that one for you.
Yeah, they won't meet with us.
Any further questions? Well, we do appreciate you being here. So at this point, we're going to suspend our regular board meeting and move into camera. Can I have a mover and a seconder to do that? Moved by Bill, seconded by David. All in favor? Mia, can I ask you to stop the recording, please? Thank you, guys. Good night. Right. As there are no in-camera motions to be brought forward for implementation, Could I have a mover and a seconder for adjournment of the regular board meeting? Moved by Madeline, seconded by David. All in favor? Carried. We are adjourned at 9:15.